Just an announcement, if someone is missing eyeglasses, they're outside with the ladies on the table outside. So I would like to welcome you to the third and final day of this wonderful conference. Actually, I had the privilege to be part of the 2007 conference, and I'm really happy with the progress that women have. Everybody knows the saying, behind every successful man, there is a great woman. I Googled it yesterday, and I saw some comments. Why the woman is not successful? What the hell is she doing back there? And another question, who is behind every successful woman? And the answer is, behind every successful woman is a tribe of other successful women who have her back. Our speaker for today, the keynote speaker, is an example of a saying by Mrs. Margaret Thatcher. If you want something said, ask a man. If you want something done, ask a woman. So our keynote speaker for today is Dr. Rima Khalafounedi. She is the Executive Secretary for the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia. She is the former Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations and was also the Director of the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, Regional Bureau for Arab States. Prior to joining the UN in 2000, Dr. Khalafounedi held a number of senior government posts in her native Jordan, including Minister of Industry and Trade, Minister of Planning, and Deputy Prime Minister. During her tenure as head of Jordan's ministerial economic team, she was successful in pushing forward the drive for economic reform, while simultaneously spearheading the effort for poverty alleviation and strengthening of the social safety net. Dr. Khalafounedi started her professional career in 1979 as lecturer in business school in the Department of Economics at Portland University, Oregon. In 1988, she was appointed Director of Planning and Research Department at the Ministry of Planning in Amman, Jordan. She is Director for Development and Commercial Centers Corporation and Director General for the Investment Promotion Department in Amman. She also served as a senator in the upper house of the Jordanian parliament and simultaneously as a member of the Economic Consultative Council, which is a public-private sector initiative established and directly supervised by His Majesty King Abdullah to promote economic reform and modernization in Jordan. Dr. Khalafounedi has a bachelor's degree from the American University of Beirut in economics and a master's from the Portland State University in economics, as well as a doctoral degree in systems science. She is the proud recipient of the Grand Cordon of the Order of Al-Kawkab al-Urdani, the Star of Jordan, bestowed upon her in 1995 by the late King Hussein of Jordan. So without further ado, Dr. Rima, thank you.
Good morning to all of you, and thank you for your kind introductory remarks. I'm actually now the former Executive Secretary of ISQA. Distinguished participants, let me start by thanking His Excellency Dr. Adnan Shahabuddin, KFAS, and all the organizers for inviting me to speak at this very important conference. It is an honor for me to join such an accomplished and distinguished group of participants. So allow me to start by saluting you and acknowledging the many women before you who gained the respect of their societies and international acclaim for their priceless contributions to all the different fields of human endeavor. Examples of outstanding Arab women are not hard to find. From the Lebanese neurologist who just uncovered the cause of a fatal disorder, paving the way for combating its progression, to the Yemeni activist who received the Nobel Prize in appreciation of her non-violent struggle for the rights of women, to the Iraqi architect whose imagination reshaped modern architecture and who was the first and only woman awarded the gold medal by the Royal Institute of British Architects. And the list goes on. The hard-won accomplishments of such women are not just a reflection of their own personal ingenuity and perseverance, but are a testament to the industriousness and resourcefulness of all Arab women when given a chance. Distinguished participants, our region has come a long way in empowering women over the past several decades. Significant investments in social services, particularly in health and education, have paid off, and the gender gap in human capabilities has almost closed. Today, there is no field of scientific knowledge still closed to women, and no profession deemed unsuitable for them. This is quite an achievement, considering that not long ago, some in our region maintained that women were unfit to assume any leading public position because they were less endowed than men with intelligence, insight, and reason. Though such demeaning attitudes of women have not completely disappeared, their acceptance by the general public has eroded significantly. The Arab world has also progressed considerably in eliminating legal discrimination against women. The constitutions of most Arab states affirm the equality of men and women in rights and before the law. Laws and policies that did not uphold such equality were revisited lately in many Arab countries. Labor laws were amended to institutionalize equal wages and maternity leave. Criminal codes were changed to repeal provisions that exonerated a rapist when he married his victim. And new laws were enacted to explicitly criminalize violence against women, including, in some cases, domestic violence. It would be hugely unfair to deny the progress made by our countries to empower women. But it would be more unfair to deny the tribulations our women still face, prejudice and discrimination in times of peace, and violence and displacement in times of conflict and foreign occupation. Despite commendable legal reforms over the past few years, de jure discrimination against women remains entrenched in personal status codes and nationality laws. In some Arab countries, women may still not enter contracts, marry, travel, or open bank accounts without the consent of their male guardian. In one Arab country, a woman must obtain written consent of her male guardian not only to travel, but also to obtain secondary education, enter the labor market, or even receive elective surgery. Nationality in many Arab countries is still determined by paternal descent. A father can pass his nationality automatically on to his children. A mother, if she is married to a non-citizen, cannot. This injustice causes unspeakable suffering, not just to women, but also to their children who are denied political rights and most public services, including health and education. Lingering legal obstacles, compounded by cultural, social, economic, and political factors, continue to impede women's progress towards fulfilling their potential. Arab women's political and economic participation is still the lowest globally. Women are consistently underrepresented in cabinets, parliaments, and at senior levels in both the public and private sectors. And only 23% of females are economically active, compared to a global 51%. This does not only hurt women. The failure to harness the capabilities and energies of half the population means missed economic and development opportunities for all. Colleagues, gender discrimination is not the only form of discrimination that devastates women in our region. They, as well as men, are also gravely impacted by discrimination based on religion, sect, and ethnic origin. Some groups are marginalized because of attributes that are not of their own choosing, like being a Sunni, a Shiite, a Christian, or an Yazidi. Depending on where they live, members of these groups can be deprived of their rights, deprived of the right to practice their religion freely, to participate equally in government, or to receive public services fairly. Whether such discrimination is deliberate or comes through neglect, the result is the same: an absence of justice that causes tremendous pain and suffering, ruptures the cultural fabric, and erodes the very foundations of social cohesion and peaceful coexistence. Sometimes, as in Israel, racial discrimination happens by design. As a Jewish state, the country's basic laws codify a privileged status for its Jewish citizens and allows discrimination against all others, particularly the remaining Palestinians whom Israel failed to uproot in 1948. Non-Jews can only attain the status of citizens of Israel, but never that of nationals. As such, they may enjoy individual rights, but have no access to the whole spectrum of nationality rights that are reserved for Jews only. Currently, there are more than 50 Israeli laws that explicitly discriminate against its non-Jewish citizens. They cover a wide range of domains, including constitutional protection, immigration, political participation, state budget, and the ability to benefit from state land and public services. This institutionalized discrimination by Israeli governments against its non-Jewish citizens is criminal under international law. Yet some in the international community continue to legitimize such discrimination by accommodating Israel's demand to be an exclusively Jewish state. This has encouraged Israel to continue flouting international law and to impose an even more austere version of this apartheid regime on the Palestinian territories it occupied in 1967. For 50 years now, Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza have been living under a grinding Israeli occupation that denies them their freedoms and their basic right to self-determination. In addition, they are subjected to an institutionalized regime of racial discrimination and segregation that treats them as lesser human beings compared to Jewish settlers residing illegally in the occupied territories. Under this regime, rights, legal protection, judicial proceedings, and the ability to benefit from services are determined by the individual's religion and national identity. Palestinian women suffer the same types of injustices endured by all Palestinians under Israeli military occupation and more. Too many have to live the consequences of their husbands being killed or jailed by Israel. More than half the Palestinian male population has been detained or jailed at some point since the beginning of the occupation. Women are left on their own to nurse the wounds, raise and educate their children, and to make a temporary living in a home that can be demolished at the whim of an Israeli soldier. Women in Gaza continue to lose their children to hunger or to an Israeli projectile. They are yet to return to homes demolished in the 2014 aggression because Israel wouldn't allow the importation of the needed construction material. In the West Bank, women in labor are prevented at Israeli checkpoints from reaching hospitals. They give birth at the checkpoint. Too often, the woman, the newborn, or both die. Little girls are harassed on their way to school by Israeli settlers. Parents are often forced to pull them out in fear for their lives or well-being. No human being should be subjected to such inhumane treatment, regardless of his or her race or religion. No people should be left to bear the brunt of colonialism and racial discrimination for over half a century. No crime should be legitimized regardless of who the perpetrator is. واسمحوا لي هنا أن أخرج على النص قليلاً بمناسبة الحديث عن فلسطين لأحيي الموقف المشرف الذي اتخذه معالي السيد مرزوق علي الغانم رئيس مجلس الأمة الكويتي في مؤتمر الاتحاد البرلماني الدولي. إدانته للمحتل ولجرائم المحتل بحق شعب فلسطين وأطفال فلسطين كانت الأصدق والأشجع. أحييه وأشكر له دعمه المتواصل لأطفال فلسطين الذين يدافعون عن وطنهم وطفولتهم في وجه الدبابة والرصاص الحي. أحييه لدعمه المتواصل لنساء فلسطين وشيوخها المرابطين في الأقصى حماية له، ولأسرى فلسطين الصامدين الصابرين في وجه الظلم والظلام من حولهم. أدعو الله أن يحميه وأن يوفقه. Thank you. Distinguished participants, racial and gender-based discrimination are also hallmarks of some of the internal conflicts currently raging in our region. In the past 5 years, 40% of Arab countries witnessed one form or another of armed conflict. Such conflicts have already caused millions of casualties and unprecedented waves of migration and displacement. Economies have collapsed and all development indicators have sharply deteriorated. The effects of war are tragic for all and devastating for women and children in specific. Deprived of education by displacement and the destruction of schools, children are denied unrepeatable opportunities to build and develop skills. Boys are dragged from classrooms and thrown into battlefields. Girls are pulled out of schools and sent into wedlock. With increased insecurity and poverty, child marriage becomes a survival strategy. The proportion of Syrian girls married before the age of 18 reached 50% since the start of the conflict. These little girls will forever be deprived of the opportunity to be like you, to be with you, no matter what the skills and talents may be. In some conflict zones, women are subjected to the most brutal experience of enslavement or human trafficking. Some, like Yazidi women, captured by fighters of the so-called Islamic State, were gang raped, sold in slave markets, and forced to work as domestic servants for fighters and their families. Women in refugee camps and war zones become the breadwinners and the caregivers when their spouses are killed, injured, or maimed. They assume the combined responsibilities of both parents in the most difficult of times and under the most difficult of circumstances. In Yemen, for example, women had about 30% of internally displaced households. This never exceeded 9% before the conflict. These women, Palestinian, Syrian, Yemeni, Libyan, or Iraqi, left alone to fight for their survival and the survival of their families, have shown us, more than any others, the ingenuity and resilience of Arab women in the face of calamity. It is these women whom I also salute today, the women who achieved the most by mastering the science and art of survival. You and them have shown the world and our region first and foremost that Arab women, in times of peace and in times of war, in their homelands and abroad, are no less achievers than men and no less intelligent, industrious, or innovative than any other person in the whole world. I thank you for standing tall in the face of adversity and for reminding us that there is no limit to what women can achieve and conquer. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to start this morning's session by introducing our session chair and first speaker, Dr. Shirley Malcolm. Dr. Malcolm is head of the Directorate for Education and Human Resources Programs of the American Association of the Advancement of Sciences. The Directorate includes AAAS programs in education activities for underrepresented groups and public understanding of science and technology. She was previously the head of the AAAS Office of Opportunities in Science. She also served as Program Officer in the Science Education Directorate of the NASF. Prior to this, she held the rank of Assistant Professor of Biology at the University of North Carolina in Wilmington. Dr. Malcolm serves on several boards, including the Heinz Endowment and the H. John Heinz III Center for Science, Economics, and Environment. She also serves as a regent of Morgan State University and as a trustee of California's Institute of Technology. She is also an honorary trustee of the American Museum of Natural History. Please welcome Dr. Shirley Malcolm.
Thank you very much. I have to find my slides here. I have but a few, but I wanted to share them. I want to thank the patrons, supporters, and organizers of this event. For me, it is wonderful to be back in Kuwait. I was here 10 years ago for the first meeting, and it was truly inspiring in terms of the incredible people, the incredible women that I met, and also the stories of the incredible science that they are doing. AAAS, as indicated by my colleague, Dr. Celeste Rolfing, at the opening, was founded in 1848. But it took until 1971 before it elected its first woman as president. Since that time, however, I think you can begin to see that there has been an amazing array of women who have joined in the leadership roles of the AAAS. You will note that the last 4 leaders have all been women. These are people who were distinguished as scientists or physicians, who have come with a background of a commitment to service, and who are providing the direction for our organization at this point in time and into the future. I would also like to introduce Dr. Franz Cordova, another leader who heads the National Science Foundation. She's the second woman to serve in that position. Dr. Rita Colwell, who now chairs the Women's Committee of the National Academies, served previously. Dr. Cordova also has a deputy who is a woman, and the National Science Board, which is the policy-making body of the National Science Foundation, has as its chair and vice chair eminent women scientists. This is Dr. Marcia McNutt, who is president, the first president of the U.S. National Academy of Sciences. Prior to her going to the Academy, she was the editor-in-chief of the Science family of journals, the first woman to serve in that position. Part of this effort, part of this activity was stimulated by legislation. It wasn't necessarily that people wanted to do the right thing, but in fact that we had laws which ensured this notion of equal opportunities in science and engineering. This act, though passed in 1980, has taken a while to take root in terms of the overall structure and strategies of science in the United States. Even where women are at parity or more than 50% of degree holders in fields such as the social sciences and biosciences. They are not necessarily present on the faculties of the major research universities or as heads of major institutions or national labs. So access is one thing, leadership is another. And that's what this panel is proposed to discuss, the issue of moving women into leadership roles so that they can begin to affect the science and the decision-making that is so critical to being able to move our fields ahead and to address our global problems. If we look in medicine, we will find that for a while now, women are receiving about half of the degrees in medicine. And yet, if we look in the right-hand corner, you will see that they remain a very small fraction of the deans of medical schools. As we look over the past 10 years of progress of women in medicine, we note that there has in fact been progress, but at a glacial pace. We cannot sit and wait for these very slow progress to move women into positions of leadership where they can in fact affect the institutions and the research agendas of the institutions. So we have undertaken a number of interventions, and I think that we're going to hear about some of these strategies, not just in the US, but across the globe. In many of our countries, we have programs for girls in science because we know that we must first introduce girls and young women to the idea of going into these fields. We have prizes that recognize women in different fields, sometimes identified with a particular discipline, such as yesterday when we were reminded of the Annie Jump Cannon Award of the American Astronomical Association or Society. But we also have awards such as those of the L'Oreal UNESCO program, which gives incredible visibility to women who are senior and a leg up to young women who are entering the fields. We have efforts to build awareness of women in STEM. And I think that some of you who were in a session on yesterday saw a little clip or just a picture from the GE commercial with Mildred Dresselhaus. You probably don't remember, but Mildred Dresselhaus was one of those women on the second slide who served as president of AAAS. We have efforts to provide support to help kickstart careers. We have international collaborations and recognition. We have women's organizations and conferences in the US, such as the Association for Women in Science or the Society for Women Engineers, the Grace Hopper Conference, which brings women who are in computer science into a setting where they can engage with other people who are struggling to move ahead in those fields. We have the Organization for Women Scientists for the Developing World, which met here in Kuwait last year, not only in the terms of their regional activities, but also their national activities, not only in terms of what they have accomplished, but in terms of the potential that they offer as an organizing place where women can lead and practice leadership skills and gain the training they need to move to the next level. In the US, we have a program called Advance. And I think that in many other countries, you have the same idea, and that is that we have to dig down and look at the policies and the laws which keep women from rising in leadership roles. It is these kinds of issues that we will be able to discuss on the panel this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll introduce our second speaker, Mr. Tom Rudin. Mr. Tom Rudin is the Director of the Board on Higher Education and Workforce at the National Academy of Science, a position he has held for 3 years. Prior to joining the NAS, he was Senior Vice President for Advocacy, Government Relations and Development at the College Board from 2006 to 2014. In the early 1990s, Mr. Rudin was a visiting instructor at the Middle East Technical University in Ankara, Turkey. He has also worked for the National Institute of Health in the United States. He holds degrees from Purdue University and the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Please welcome Mr. Tom Rudin.
Good morning, everyone. And I want to add my appreciation to this panel and to Shirley for chairing it, and to the leaders of this conference. It's quite an honor for me to be here. And I actually, before I begin my presentation, which is also quite brief so we can have a rich conversation, I just want to speak to you from the heart for a moment, if you will. I take very seriously and with great humility and responsibility the fact that I'm one of the few men at this conference and one of the few men to be on the panel. Actually, someone has said to me over the recent days, several people have said, hey, how do you feel about all this man bashing? And I said, no, I'm used to that. I have a wife and 2 daughters at home. I get man bashing, one man, every day. So I'm used to that. But actually, in all seriousness, I have not heard any man bashing. What I have heard is a remarkable amount of experience and remarkable and moving stories from a number of women who have taught us a great deal, certainly taught me a great deal about hope and courage and perseverance and love and inspiration. And it's been a great reminder to me of the responsibility that we all have, and especially the responsibility that men have to be advocates and supporters and champions for women in STEM and for women in leadership positions across all fields. So I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to be part of that. And I want to mention one other thing before, I start my presentation. We've talked a great deal about steps we need to take to move women into science and into positions of leadership. We take that very seriously. I hope we can also talk about inspiring women to just love science, whether they are going to be scientists or not. And in fact, inspire men and women to love science. I had the privilege of meeting 3 people at my dinner table last night. They happened to be right here, Manal, Donna, and Shahad, who are, actually, you may not know this, they are tweeting and posting on Facebook and Instagram everything that's happening at this event. So be careful what you do and be careful what you say. None of them are scientists, but they all love science. And that is, to me, equally important, that we create a generation of people who love science and who can help us solve the problems of this world, even if they're not scientists. But they understand that every challenge we face, poverty, war, global climate change, economic inequality, there's a significant science component to that. And until we bring a greater understanding of science and technology and engineering to the experience of every child and every student, I'm not sure we will be tapping the full brain power we need to take on these challenges. So we do need to commit to more women in science. Let's also commit to more women and men who love and appreciate science and make that an important part of our work. And then a final point, I'm reminded by the very moving remarks of our keynote speaker this morning. We've spent a lot of time talking about women, in science, and sometime talking about men, we've mentioned those among us who are least well served, who are most disadvantaged, who are the most oppressed in society. But we haven't dwelt on that point. And I would hope we can spend some time, maybe today, maybe the rest of the day, talking about those men and women least well served, the billions of women and girls and boys who are not well represented, who are oppressed because of the color of their skin, because of their gender, because of their orientation, because of their immigration status, those reasons. And we should include that as part of our commitment to equity and inclusion. So let me move quickly to my so-called presentation here. I'm just going to skip to 4 things we are doing at the National Academy of Sciences to focus on this work. I happen to direct the Board on Higher Education and Workforce. As the name implies, we focus on colleges and universities. I also, believe it or not, am the director of the Committee on Women in Science, Engineering, and Medicine. We happen to think that with a chair who is a female, Dr. Rita Caldwell, who Shirley mentioned, and a director of the staff who is a man, we can be a pretty good team to tell this story of advocating for women. I've hired 7 scientists on my staff this past year. All 7 are women with a PhD in science. So we try to practice what we preach as well. Were the 7 most qualified people I could find. I'm very proud to have the opportunity to work with them. And we have a deep commitment to equity and inclusion in our work. But in terms of the work we do, I'll mention 4 things. One is we're trying to understand and recognize the power of science to help create leaders. Now, what do I mean by that? As I mentioned earlier, the challenges we face in this world have a significant science component to them. So what better way to create a generation of more female leaders than to give them training in science to serve humanity by tackling the most pressing challenges of the day, which have that science component. And so we take very seriously this idea of training new scientists to be scientists, but also leaders in business, in government, in policy. We need more members of Congress in the United States who are women and who are scientists. We need more presidents. Actually, I shouldn't talk about the president. I'll stop right there. But we need more policy leaders in our country and across the globe who have a training and an understanding of science. And back to the point about our colleagues who love science, aren't scientists, but care about people and care about the world. That's another part of our work. We want to create a generation of people who will fight the good fight for us to solve humanity's most pressing problems. Second, and Shirley mentioned this whole idea of removing barriers that prevent women from moving into leadership roles. Shirley actually chaired a study committee for our organization. I think you completed your work about a year ago that was focused on removing the barriers and opportunities that women and underrepresented students, including students of color, face as they prepare to enter the workforce. We are putting a lot of energy, and you'll hear about remarkable programs that put women and other students on the path to success, and yet they continue to fall out of the pathway or the pipeline because of the challenges they face. So I've highlighted here a couple of the things, 4 of the items that we are focusing on with our work, and I can respond to questions about these. Third, and I've already mentioned this, people keep saying, well, what can men do? What role can men play? At the session at the end of the day yesterday, this issue came up, the session across the hall. Many of you were there. A man asked a question of the panel, what can men do? And Dr. Wren mentioned, Dr. Wren, are you still here? She's in the back. She said, the first thing you can do, men, is listen. Listen to us. Don't talk over us. Understand the challenges we face. And Dr. Black, who will be speaking in just a moment, she raised a very important point in response to that question, what can men do? She said, just look around you. Look around at your surroundings. How many women are you seeing on committees? How many women do you see doing these studies? If you don't see enough women, do something about it. Take it upon yourselves to be advocates. And there are many other things men can do. One of the hardest things for men to do, I have to confess, I'm getting better at this, I'm still not great at it, is challenge other men. Challenge other men who make disparaging remarks about women, who put women down, who say women can't do science. I can do it easily in the boardroom or the classroom. It's harder to do in the locker room and other social settings. And I need to get better at it. We all need to get better at that. The fourth thing we can do, and I'll spend just a moment on this and then I'll wrap up. We want to address the issue of unconscious bias and sexual harassment in STEM. STEM with two M's, science, technology, engineering, math, and medicine, where sexual harassment and unconscious bias takes a serious toll on the participation of women. I have a quote up here from a colleague who works at the National Institutes of Health, the director of the Office of Women's Health. Her name is Janine Clayton. And I was telling her about a study we are launching soon that will look at steps to reduce unconscious bias. And she said, Tom, don't issue another report that says you need to fix the women. Women need to do this differently. Women need to behave differently. What you need to do is focus on changing the culture of the institution, changing the leadership, the policies, the behaviors, the attitudes of the people in the organizations. Don't ask women to behave differently so that they can be treated better. That's what most reports say. That's a problem. That's not going to fix the problem. And so I'll just highlight two more slides here. I'm going to put right on the table, I hope it's not uncomfortable for people to talk about this, but I think we need to address it head on. It's a major problem in our country. If you followed the US election, you followed this issue of sexual harassment among one of the candidates, believe it or not. If you're following the news now, we hear about sexual harassment in Hollywood. But the degree of sexual harassment on college and university campuses in STEM departments is very troubling, and we are launching a major study with grant support from the National Science Foundation and the National Institutes of Health to study this issue and to try to resolve this problem. It starts with how is sexual harassment defined. We define it in two simple ways, quick ways, come-ons and put-downs. And I don't know how that translates into Arabic for those of you, but this idea of sexual harassment and gender harassment can take many forms. Some of it's easy to define, others it's harder to define, but we need to confront it head on. And the final point I'll make is we're beginning to understand now steps to address sexual harassment in STEM. One of the ways is through training. But one of the things we've learned is that offering no training is better than offering bad training. And most training is bad training, at least the experiences we have. Where I worked prior to coming to the National Academy of Sciences, the training was a 10-minute video with a 3-question quiz at the end. Now, that sends a message to the people taking the training that this organization really doesn't care about sexual harassment. So why should I care? If they don't care, why should I change my behavior if I'm a man? So you might as well not offer any training if you're going to offer bad training. So we're trying to look, we're doing a very in-depth analysis of the kind of training that can be effective and that can change the workplace culture and that can actually change people's behavior, even if it doesn't necessarily change their attitudes. So I'll conclude there. I'm going to just actually show a slide from a symposium that was held here 6 years ago, and that's actually going to be held again next week. Some of you have mentioned that. Some of you may be attending this event. Many of the conversations here will continue at this event in Morocco in a couple weeks, and those of you who are able to attend, I would urge you to do so. But I hope we have time for questions. I hope we can discuss some of these hard issues, the issues that are uncomfortable for us. If it's only when we decide to tackle those uncomfortable issues that we're going to actually be able to address them. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rudin. Our next speaker is Professor Christina Felicia. Professor Felicia graduated from the University of Geneva, and she obtained her doctorate in science from the École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne. Previously, she was responsible for a research group on atmospheric physics at the Observatory of Neuchâtel, and further as an assistant professor at the University of Geneva. She headed the new space laboratory of the Consortio CEO, where the objective was to develop new space sensors in collaboration with the academic institution and the industries. She has also served on the faculty of the University of Ferrara and has been a delegate of the Rector for International Relations and Relation with the European Union at the University of Tor Vergata in Rome. She has been responsible for more than 30 European and international programs in atmospheric science and space research, and is currently the chair of the EU-GCC Science, Technology and Innovation Partnership. Please welcome Professor Felicia.
Thank you very much. How I can reach my presentation here? Sorry. This? So, thank you very much. What I would like to describe you today, my career has been in space science in terms of satellite for Earth observation, and I will briefly touch this, but this is not really what I would like to discuss with you today, because what I would like to discuss is an adventure that started 5 years ago because of a mandate I had from the European Commission to come here in the GCC region and to explore the best way for cooperation with the region. But let's just give me a few, say a few words on my background. When I graduated in physics, I enrolled in the University of Geneva in physics. I was the only one in all the only one woman in the overall faculty, like a lot of us, I imagine. When I had my PhD in theoretical physics from the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, again, I was the only one in all department. And at the end, before even the end of my PhD, when I was presenting my result in a conference, it comes to me a gentleman with a big mustache, and he told me, Mrs., would you like to try to apply your results to a LiDAR on the board of a satellite? And my answer has been, listen, I don't know what is a LiDAR, and even less I know how a satellite is working. And he told me, don't worry, we know. It was an official from the European Space Agency, and I tried to work with them. And this has been the beginning of my career in space and Earth observation satellites. I worked for 20 years with ESA and NASA, with all the space industries in Europe and most in the US. I developed as an assistant professor an independent unit in Geneva, an independent unit dependent directly on the Swiss government on space research, where we were developing from the theoretical physics, going to computer science, to engineering, and prototype for space applications in cooperation with all those space industries. So in this way, I worked with NASA for the LiDAR in Space shuttle experiment with Dr. David Winker. We flew the first LiDAR in space, at least the first civil laser in space, and we demonstrated the existence of multiple scattering for cloud that actually, I'm afraid to say, destroyed any kind of resolution for cloud monitoring from space. After that, I've been part of the steering committee of the Earth radiation mission for ESA, which was a big, and is a big mission for the measuring of the Earth radiation. And at the end, I proposed the double-edged molecular technique Doppler wind ladder for measuring wind from space. This has been approved, and I was the co-PI of the Zephyr Doppler wind ladder shuttle experiment, and has been also approved as baseline design for the Aladdin big space mission at ESA. After approving this at NASA, they decided that the technology was too expensive to build for a shuttle flight, so they canceled it. At ESA, and it was more or less 2000 and 2001. At ESA, they decided to go on, and actually, hopefully, Aladdin will fly next spring, so 18 years afterwards, and €500 million afterwards. So when I think about this, I feel guilty, but in some sense, this has been, for me, on the one sense, a great success and a great problem. And in the middle of the 2000 years, I said no. I said to one of my colleagues in NASA, I say, no, we cannot go on like this, okay? There are much more things, much more important to do than not to fly a LiDAR in space. And then I give up. And the answer of Dr. Bob Atlas, which was a distinguished meteorologist at NASA Hawaii Center for Meteorology, he told me, what are you saying, Christina? If your LiDAR had been in space, the disaster of Katrina in New Orleans has not happened. So this stopped me, and I said, okay, I have to continue. This is also why, for 18 years, most of my work has not been published, and if we continue like this, I will leave this as a legacy for the future. So hopefully this will go on. But on this, I was the only woman in this world of men and harsh technology engineering for space. And I was used to this. I also have been the only one. Till when the European Commission asked me to come here in the region and to report to them about the best way of cooperating with the region. This is where I found a lot of wonderful women that helped me developing the structure that I want to talk to you now, and more than that, they become great friends. So the idea of the European Commission was to ask me to come here in the region and give seminar and talks in order to explain what we were doing in Europe and promoting the participation of GCC institutions to our framework programs. What I said to them, no, this will never work. So if you want me to do this, I will do this my way. And my way, it will be not to give any talk or any seminar, but to go there and to discuss with everybody. I want to understand. They were not very happy. And they said, we can stay behind you, but if you want to do this, you have to do that alone. Because we, as an institution, we cannot do it. So we will open some doors for you, but you will be alone. And I said, okay. So they opened some doors for me, and I started to discuss with the minister, with the GCC council, with the dean, with the rector, with the president of the university, with the founding agency, with the researcher, and with the students. And 2 years later, when I came back, I told them what, in my opinion, we had to do in order to really to work together. Because what I forgot to mention, which is more important, I found a treasure of science in this region. So this is why the ISTIP Foundation was established with the support of everybody. And I would like to underline that what I will tell afterwards here is the result of the contribution of all the policymakers here in the region for research, of relevant persons in the founding agencies, and especially on the commitment of tens and tens of the best scientists in the two regions. And on the role of the women, I will come back directly afterwards. So the first thing, which is not written here, but because for me it was obvious, it is that to work together, we need to have equal right, not only between women and men, but between the two regions. You cannot ask institutions here to take part to our program or to other program and say, yes, but you have to follow European or US, I don't know, but I mean European priority, European administration, European coordination, European everything. It will never work, and we'll never have any results for this. Second, I'm afraid to say that the international cooperation are very nice, but are nice when they are needed. Because the best scientists in the world, they will never go very far from their country to develop something if they can do with the colleague next door. They will move only if there are scientific needs. And we have a lot of fields where we have scientific needs. In health, in climate change, and a lot of different subjects. And the third is that to have international relations effective, we must have stable funding. If I come and make a project with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, or China, or whatever, that lasts 2 or 3 years, I will need 1 year to understand how it's working. Maybe 1 year to start to work, and after that the project is finished without a guarantee of funding. This, I'm sorry, is a waste of money for everybody, because I will not be able to have a sustainable research framework. This is the basic principle. On the top of this, what has been elaborated all together, and this is why I said place science back where it was intended, is that during the last century, we are science has a huge development. And everybody, every state, build a very nice research system for research and education, and important international networking program in order to exchange the data and to support the technological development. However, we have to say that everybody, we are scientists, so everybody knows that networking alone is not enough. Because the globalization of research now is assured. It's assured by the web, it's assured by the conference, it's assured for this. What we need is something that is more deep than not networking. Because if putting together different pieces of science a posteriori is very difficult and very costly. So if I go to a conference and saw that you are doing a piece of work that maybe could be useful for me, if I have to integrate this in my work a posteriori, it will be very difficult. And we have to redo half of the research that we have done. So another aspect is that the ultra-specialization of science that has been needed now is a barrier. Because we see the problem, we are facing huge problems, and we see problems from one slight little angle, and we'll never be able to solve it looking at this from one slight little angles. So the third principle is that as a scientist, I'm a theoretical scientist, and I start from a mathematical science, theoretical science, and I ended with space engineering, okay? So I don't understand what is the dichotomy, because applied or fundamental research. We have research, and the research, it is one, okay? We have one problem that we have to solve, and we have to use all what we have or all what we can to solve the problem. So, and I think that this is one of the the problem that prevent a good translation of the research output into the socio-economical system. I'm not saying that there is one person that can have all the aspects, but the problem is that to create a research network, or we call that a research mission, research platform, interdisciplinary research platform, where different expertise can work together in order to solve one problem. So I think I said more or less the essential part of this. So based on this concept, the ISTIP, which is the International Partnership for Science, Technology and Innovation, has been established as a non-profit research foundation based in Switzerland to create a flexible environment reflecting the principle that I was describing. Because one thing that I forgot to say, but is important, is that a flexible research needs also a flexible administration. I'm not saying an easy administration. I'm saying a very strict administration, but a flexible administrative framework. And this is very important in order to deliver the result to the society. Because the industry, the social challenge need quick response, not very heavy administrative barriers. So the basic principle is that we have tailored administrative schemes. The foundation is based in Switzerland because during my journey here, I had to learn a lot about politics, a lot about diplomacy, and a lot of science, a very different piece of science that were very far from my background. Actually, space science, it is one of the only field which is not representative because I felt that it was a conflict of interest, at least for me. So, neutral base in Switzerland because, for instance, now I think it's not a secret, we have a problem in Europe with the UK, with the Court of Law. So UK is not accepting the European Court of Law, and the European cannot accept a UK Court of Law. So for such kind of program, we landed in Switzerland, which is accepted by everybody, and more than that, it is near to international organization. So the funding of the project will be assured by co-founding of state agencies that will decide freely, project by project, how much they want to put in a given program and who they want to finance. So we need freedom in research. So this is what, controlled freedom, let's say controlled freedom. So now this is how we work, this is the foundation. The public authority, I think that it is their duty and their right to tell us which are the problems. The problem that we have to solve. We have a problem with diabetes. We have a problem with, I don't know, pollution, marine pollution. Okay, tell us the problem. And when we have shared priorities, so a problem could be a problem for one nation and another one, so there is no way and no point, in my opinion, to make international cooperation. But if a problem is worldwide or touching two regions, then we have to work together. So we have international advisory board with members of the international organization and of all the Academy of the world, or Academy of Science in the world. And we have a scientific council made in equal number by scientists, in this case, between Europe and the GCC, because everybody has to be represented on a pure scientific base and pure scientific merit. Okay? So this I think we can skip. We have the endorsement, is more than endorsement, the support and the participation of a huge amount of stakeholders, from national ministry to the bigger companies in Europe and in the GCC, and to international organizations. I just list here, just an example, some. So you know that though though is the best water company in Saudi Arabia. The Suez Group doesn't have to be commented. The World Meteorological Organization, the Secretary General of the World Meteorological Organization has officially appointed a representative in our International Scientific Committee on the person of Dr. Roxana Tarasova. She is the head of the Global Earth Watching Program. And we have national institutes. And so this diversity of stakeholders that have agreed to participate, and they endorse not only the project, but the cooperation scheme. It means that this is what they need in order to deliver the result to the society. Now, I would like to mention the role of the women that helped me building this, and I would like to say without them, this has not been possible. The first, these are alphabetic order, so this is not, the first is Professor Mariam Ali Al-Madin, who was here on Monday, then at Qatar University. Not only she supported from the beginning this program, but she built an overall framework, a wonderful framework on material science. So I knew Professor Mariam since, I mean, so 5 years ago, at least 5 years ago, and she also been a great support and Qatar representative for this. Dr. Adil Bash at Princeton University, she acted a lot, not only for her university or for the rehabilitation programs where she worked on, but make connection with the King Faisal Hospital. We now have at least 2 projects with King Faisal Hospital, very important project, and she's still very active. We have now 5, I think, projects between her and King Faisal Hospital. Dr. Silke Bloom at SOAS, it was, when I met her, she was the head of research at Coast in Jeddah, and she believed in the project right from the beginning. She made a long and delicate work in Saudi Arabia and in Coast in particular. Now we have not only the support of Coast, we have a strong support of Coast, 5 projects, very important, from water, epigenetics, and I will say those from this university. Professor Anne Ferguson-Smith from Cambridge in epigenetics. She is the head of, the president of the European Epigenetic Society, and she helped in building, she built, not help in building, she built a wonderful framework for epigenetics, and also she had the idea to propose in this flexible environment, a dedicated part of the program in order to spread epigenetics in the GCC world, because it's not very well represented, giving grants for young researchers, and establishing new centers for epigenetics. Professor Alessandra Ferlini was at the beginning in my university part when I spent a few years in Ferrara, and now at University College of London. She builds 3 frameworks, all related to genetics, on rare diseases, nanomedicine, and clinical trials. She's a person, all of these women are personal friends of mine, but especially they are outstanding scientists and, let's say, politicians, because we need also this. Okay, I go on. Then there is Professor Maria Luce Frezzotti and, and Professor Susanna Nunes at King Saud University that had more or less the same role. So now we have this platform of excellence. There will have a young investigator program, dual supervisor PhD, dedicated to the science to be developed, not in order to guarantee the sustainability of science, and to assure the continuity. Now we have, I finish. So now we have more than 160 programs have been proposed. From these 20 flagship programs on the model of the synergy grants of the European Research Council, so 5 years programs for 15 million euro have been selected, and with the participation of 140 scientists in the flagship program, 18 European countries and all the GCC countries. So I don't have to go the time to go to the program. This is the list of universities which are included in the flagship programs. We are 70 universities in Europe and 29, I think, in the GCC. And I would like to thank one more and to acknowledge one more the role of all the people that contributed, several individuals, and the tens of scientists that believed on this and helped in building these programs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Felicia. Our next speaker is Dr. Annie Black. Dr. Black is Executive Deputy Director of the L'Oreal Corporate Foundation, a Franco-Canadian with a doctoral degree in cellular and molecular biology. Dr. Black began her career in a startup in the biotechnology industry, where she participated in the creation of the company and held the role in research and development and clinical evaluation. She joined the L'Oreal Group in 2004, where she held different positions in the Research and Innovation Division in the area of alternative methods to animal testing. Since 2014, Dr. Black has been supporting and empowering women scientists through the L'Oreal UNESCO for Women in Science program. Please welcome Dr. Annie Black.
Thank you and good morning. I'd like to thank the organizing committee for this very kind invitation. It's an honor to be here today in front of so many extraordinary pioneers, innovators, leaders, and most importantly, role models. And I think all of you today, with you, young women in the Middle East will have a very bright future. Today, less than 30% of researchers are women, and less than 3% of scientific Nobel Prizes are awarded to women. When so many studies show that gender equality can contribute to productivity and global growth, why should we settle for this? For almost 20 years, the L'Oreal Foundation and UNESCO have been committed to women in science to increase the share of women working in research by promoting research, supporting women, and fostering scientific vocations. Since 1998, the L'Oreal UNESCO for Women in Science program has honored 97 laureates for groundbreaking discoveries or seminal contributions to their field of science. One of the program highlights has been when two of our 2008 award winners, Ada Younat and Elizabeth Blackburn, went on to win a Nobel Prize in 2009. When people in the street are asked to name a woman scientist, many of them have difficulties finding one. And when they do, many of them think of Marie Curie. She was an exceptional scientist, the only person to get 2 Nobel Prizes in different scientific disciplines, and a role model for many generations of women scientists. However, her career path might seem unattainable to many young women. This is why young scientists today need more contemporary role models like her laureates, who become a new source of inspiration for future generations for more diverse and varied science. An important part of this program is to increase the visibility of women scientists. For example, in mid-March every year, a unique exhibition about our 5 laureates is organized in the streets of Paris and in the Paris airports, and for the first time this year, at the Dubai airport. The L'Oréal UNESCO for Women in Science program has also supported more than 2,750 young fellows from all around the world during their PhD or postdoctoral research at a most critical time when many young women might stop research. This program is a major international initiative and is the result of a unique and long-term partnership between UNESCO and the L'Oréal Foundation. In 2017, 275 fellowships will be given through 48 national and regional programs covering 115 countries. A new regional program in Central America will be launched in 2018, which will help us increase the number of countries where we support women. 386 independent scientists from all over the world participate in the evaluation and selection of applications. Among those, 31 are L'Oréal UNESCO Award laureates. The program gives more than 2.7 million euros in fellowship each year, and since the beginning of the fellowships in 2001, more than 25 million euros have been given to young women starting their careers. Many dedicated L'Oréal employees at our headquarters in Paris, as well as in our 48 subsidiaries all over the world, are involved in this program. More than 80 L'Oréal employees work day to day on the international awards and the national and regional fellowship programs. We also have 43 local partnerships. They are key to maintaining the highest level of scientific excellence and they guarantee the independence of our selection processes. These partnerships include such institutions as the French Académies des Sciences, the Royal Society, AAAS, the Brazilian Academy of Sciences, the Chinese Association for Science and Technology, just to name a few. At the L'Oréal Foundation, we believe that in order to support women scientists, we must go beyond grants and award ceremonies. The L'Oréal UNESCO program also organizes mentoring sessions, personalized coaching and trainings in communications, management, and leadership to give women scientists the tools to break the glass ceiling. And this is what makes our program unique. I've been fortunate to meet many laureates and fellows from all over the world, and I am most proud when a scientist tells me that her prize or fellowship has made a difference in her career. The program has been a real career booster for many women. For example, some of the laureates have benefited from the visibility generated through the program, which raised their profiles and helped them get access to new positions. For others, the recognition has simply helped them to boost their confidence and give them the push they needed to reach for higher positions or increased responsibilities. After listening to the lectures of this year's laureates in Paris at the French Academy of Sciences, one of our fellows told me, "I just realized that I am not alone. There are other women like me who are tackling very difficult problems." And this aha moment is just another example of what this program is all about, bringing women together, the best women scientists in the world, so can they develop their network and find support. I believe that women role models are extremely important. They make things real and are the proof that dreams can come true. But unfortunately, this is not enough. We need to reach out to young girls. Another initiative that I'm very proud of is the For Girls in Science program. This pilot program was launched in 2014 in France. And we know that girls in middle and high school often veer away from scientific careers because they lack confidence in themselves and do not have, if any, women's scientific role models that they can identify with. and also because stereotypes about science and women in science, and as well as inadequate perceptions of scientific careers, can stop them in pursuing this track. I am not joking. This is how many teenagers in France perceive scientists and women scientists. There are many different stereotypes. We did a workshop in 2014 with 150 teenagers in different high schools, and we've asked them, what is science? What is a woman scientist, or what would a woman scientist look like? And believe me, this is what the answers we got from French teenagers. So as you can see, there are a lot of extremely negative stereotypes. This was very, very useful for us to better understand what young people think today and what are their expectations and what they see about science. And this very important information helped us to develop a method. And this very important method is, in a nutshell, meet a scientist. We ask our Firminent Science Fellows to go into classrooms and talk to teenagers about themselves, about their career paths, about their choices, so they can inspire young women and young boys to embrace scientific careers. We have 3 important levers in this program. First, of course, is the role model. Second is how to deconstruct stereotypes. And there's one very, very strong stereotype in France about mathematics. Basically, boys are good in mathematics, girls are good in literature. We all know that this is completely rubbish. But this is a very, very strong stereotype, and we need to show young girls that if they like mathematics, they can be good at it. Anyone can learn to do math. And also, another very important point is to restore confidence. Now, this program is in partnership with the French Ministry of Education, and we're also working with the Institute of Public Policy to measure the impact of this program, because of course we're not the first to go into high schools to talk to young teachers and also young students, but it's important that we measure the impact of this program. What are we doing? Is this effective? So we've worked with this institute, and we've looked at 15,000 students. Half of them have met as science ambassadors, and the other have not, and we've given them a questionnaire. We're very lucky because we're in a partnership with the French Ministry of Education. We have access to all of their grades and files, so we're able to see if this program is really effective and one type of profile which is more infectious or maybe less. Our goal, of course, will be to roll out this program internationally. Before I end, I would like to leave you with a few personal words. I'm the very proud mother of 2 young boys. They are my pride and joy. I'm very lucky to have a supportive husband, which gives me the freedom to invest in my career. And believe me, I have the most wonderful job in the world. I have a responsibility to teach my boys the importance of respect, of tolerance and equality, but also help them to develop their self-esteem so they can become confident men who will not be threatened by the fact that women are their equal. I would also like to thank the men who are in this conference today, who have been with us for these 3 days, and I have an important message for you. We need you. We can empower women and fight for equal opportunity with everything that we have, but we will not succeed unless we engage with men. Thank you very much.
We thank our guest speakers this morning. Now we'll have a break, but first...
We actually have.
Oh, sorry.
It's 10:30?
Yeah, almost 10:30.
Oh, they're going to break now.
First
Okay,
break.
okay. But it isn't time for the break.
Oh, in 15 minutes.
Okay. That's what I thought. Okay, when we do have the break, we're going to take a group photo. But it is not time yet for the break. We're going to take some questions first. I was struck by the fact that Dr. Black mentioned the scientist. There is that particular activity was published, the results of it were published in Science in 1957 by Margaret Mead and Rhoda Matro. And at that particular time, there were 5,000 drawings of the scientists that came from high school students, and only 28 were women, and the rest were men. And these were drawn by both women and men. I say this to remind us that these stereotypes are very resistant to change. So we have to remember that the visibility issues that we're talking about are really, really important. Okay, are there questions from the audience for the panel? Okay.
Thank you. Everything is so constructive, a great opportunity, and thanks to Professor Faiza who took this lead. We all know now there is no need to emphasize again that women cannot do as better than men. They can tolerate, they can produce, and they can solve problems. So why are we here? There is something I would like to be selfish and concentrate about our region now. I did a lot of things in my life. I maybe bored you with it, but anyway, I was satisfied with whatever is needed to my society and my profession. There was no problem with that. I was satisfied. And I did a lot. But my society, shall I say, the dominating men in the society, or the lead, they did not ever recognize me unless I took a post in the WHO as a regional advisor. Only now, my people say, discover downstairs there, she's doing something. Otherwise, my people, my authorities, they never thought of me, although I was doing very good, very important positions. So this is our region. We have something called, and then after WHO, I was one of the shortlisted or L'Oreal. Okay. So I want to say our people here, they have an Arabic expression, and it's unfortunate, but I can't translate it. عقدة الخواجة. So if you people we don't want you to take us to go and somewhere, but recognize us, because our people will not highlight until you people recognize us. We need you and you need us. We're very hard workers, very sincere, and we do good job. So please think of that. Thank you.
There's another question right next.
Hi, I just wanted to bring to the attention of the audience and the panel the importance of being a female and in midlife. I've always seen programs that encourage women that are very young. There are programs that encourage women that are achieved a lot, that are the role models for us, but everyone tends to ignore this age group. The problem is, as a female, we always have to we deviate from our role. So when we study and when we join our jobs, then we have children and we have to take care of our families. And by the time we go back, we're in this mid-age, between 40 and 50. I don't find anything that is encouraging women to do anything at that age. And what happens, she starts thinking, and then why do I then have to pursue science? I would rather go and study business, and that is going to be another chance for me where I can achieve something. So I think it's very important to have some studies by AAAS for women in mid-age, and also by maybe L'Oreal to consider also awarding awards for women in mid-age. By doing that, then you will encourage the young ones also. In case you want to become a wife or a mother, then you still also have a chance for you to sustain and continue doing research in your life.
Okay, more questions. We have one here, one over here. We'll go on and take that since the mic is there, but if you can come to this side after you finish. Okay.
All right. I had a question for Dr. Annie Black. Would you be able to give us some insights from your initial measurements of the impact of looking at the interventions you have handling stereotypes? It'd be interesting to hear.
We're just starting to get a few of the results. It is extremely complicated because it's just 1 hour in a classroom. What we know is that the technique or method that we developed has some efficiency, but not on all students. Of course, students who come from backgrounds where a mother, a father, or a relative is already engaged in science, we do not really see an impact. There are some students who are either experiencing difficulties in school. It's difficult at this stage also to see an impact, but there seems to be kind of a group in between the students who are performing very, very well and are exposed to science. The other students have more difficulties. There seems to be a group where this 1 hour has an impact. Unfortunately, I don't have the figures today. We will have this by the end of the year, and our colleagues from the Institute of Public Policy are very, very excited because it's a unique study because we have access to all of the data from the French government. So there will be a scientific publications next year sometime with all of the results with much detail.
I just want to insert something because AAAS is one of the groups that works with L'Oreal for Women in Science, in this case in the United States, to review the applications from the women for postdoctoral positions. And I would begin by saying there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of applications, and they go through a multi-stage peer-reviewed process. These are outstanding women, absolutely outstanding. You give 5 awards, it could be 50, and you would still have very, very high quality. The point is that it reinforces the women who receive these awards. It gives them greater visibility within the scientific community, and it actually adds a boost to the trajectory of their career, because there is the understanding that having received this award, that the process that they went through was so rigorous that they really are stars. And I think that that is really an advantage for the working with the young women in their early career time.
My name is Nagwa. I'm a professor of human genetics in the National Research Center in Egypt. Mr. Robin, you touched 2 words, culture and change. This is very difficult, especially in the Arab population. The culture is very heavy, and it is transmitted from generation to generation to generation. So how to start to change this culture? Because the mothers are always carrying the boy, her son, that he is the leader, and his sister is not the leader. You have to wait until your brother uses the computer, and then you will take your turn, always the second. Okay?
Yes, obviously there is no easy answer. This is going to take generations of change. But look at what's happening in this meeting. This is what has to happen all over the region, I would argue. These kinds of conversations get people to think a little differently about how they understand the role of women in science. The tweeting and the posting on Facebook, over time, that's the only way we'll make this change, is one step at a time. Probably some steps forward and some steps backward. But it's these kinds of conversations showing the success of women, showing their contribution to society, that we have to just continue to drive forward. It's easy to lose faith. It's easy to get frustrated, but we can't afford that. We have to just continue to drive one little step at a time. That would be my argument.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
No.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
Yes.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Alia Shatanawi. I'm from Jordan. So my question is mainly for Mr. Rudin. So I did my PhD studies in the United States, and you talked about the unconscious bias and the discrimination. And I noticed there is some conscious bias when it comes to women. When you want to choose your advisor, and some of the men would ask you, are you married? Do you have children? And that's because they don't want a lady with too many responsibilities to join their lab because they have to work so many hours in the lab. So is that kind of a discrimination? Thank you.
Yeah. Well, not only is it discrimination, but it's illegal to ask that question in the United States as part of a job interview. You're not permitted to do that. See, that's just to go back to the previous question. I want to elaborate on that, and this gets to your point. We need these changes one small step at a time in the institutions, in the classrooms, in the boardrooms. But we also need courageous policy leaders. I think there's a significant role for public policy. If we wait for people's attitudes to change before we implement the policy, as we can attest to with our own problems in the United States with civil rights issues, we'll never get there. We need to impose laws and rules that force people to change their behavior, whether they want to or not, and to outlaw discrimination or discriminatory acts that will prevent women from moving forward. Those combinations of policy changes at the top, and as Robert F. Kennedy once said, the million tiny ripples of hope from the bottom will ultimately, we hope, create the kind of change we need.
Thank you. Good morning. Can I make a follow-up question to the last two, which is, do you then think, given that you mentioned that men could discuss the inclusion of women more in their working lives in the boardroom, but perhaps not in the locker room, do you feel that there could be a role for some sort of training? Companies now have mandatory sexual harassment training and all sorts of things. Do you think perhaps that we should be developing a small seminar-based training system to encourage men to be able to discuss this sort of thing amongst themselves? Thank you.
Yeah. There is a group that I'm aware of, it's actually a group of white men who are developing programs to train other white men. And that may be the most effective thing, is for white men to confront directly, head-on, other men who look like them and say, this has to stop, this is wrong, this is not good for society, it's certainly not good for your daughter or your wife or your mother. And that kind of training, it would seem to me, can be a partial step forward. I would imagine others have thoughts about that too. Often, I mean, any kind of training that's good can be effective. As I said, bad training is worse than no training, but maybe training from someone who might surprise you about his perspective could perhaps be the best training of all.
Okay, we have a final question all the way back in the back of the room.
Actually, it's not a question, it's a comment. I wanted to just, based on what was going on in the discussion, to say that it takes a man, leader himself, who believes in women to make a woman leader. I just want to give an example that in some institutions like ours, it took a man leader to recognize that there are women who can be vice deans as well as deans, as well as chairs and whatever. So we continue doing the good work and take initiatives, and then if there's a man who recognizes us, this will happen. The other thing is we have committees in the region, in some institutions which called equal opportunities committees, to ensure that women are being in committees as well as in when they for employment, to have equal opportunities throughout. So we have many positive things going on in many places in the region. I just wanted to verify that men are really taking a good part in empowering women in our region.
Thank you. I know that we could keep going forever, but I think the organizers would scold me since we are at the end of our time. Please talk to each other about this. I totally agree that many of us have been able to reach high levels because of men leaders who have basically singled us out, appointed us out, and given us opportunities. But subsequently, many of us have had our own opportunities to lead. And there we have a responsibility to bring other women into those leadership roles. And that is something that is that next step that men and women basically participate in bringing women, younger women, into leadership. And that is, I think, the charge that I would leave all of us with. Thank you very much. And thank the panel and the questioners.
I just would like to bring to your attention that right now we're going to have a group picture just outside this hall. الحين إذا في بالإمكان نجتمع عشان في صورة جماعية just before the breakfast قبل البريك. Just 1 minute. And also, please, we're distributing questionnaires. Just make sure that you're going to just have your copy and respond to it. And place it by the table, just by the door. Thank you.